Hey, this is Devin. I'm making sure all the little technology things are in action. If you are joining me right now, it's time to turn up the volume so you can hear what I have to say today. Anyway, we are talking about writing every couple days. We talk about writing, and not every couple days. We talk about writing every day. This is Daily Writing with me, Devin Galaudet. We're going to talk today about working with an editor. This is sort of like it's personal. I'm going to go into that in about a minute and give you my thoughts on how that works as not only somebody who's working with an editor active like right now, but as well as somebody who's been an editor, as I said before, Devin Galaudet. I am the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler. I've been doing that for the last 13 years. Have an MFA in creative writing, as well as my memoir, 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes, is on its way September 18th, 2018, which is very cool. So a couple things. I guess I want to tell you a couple stories. First off, I remember when I was fairly new within the Know Traveler, somebody sent me an article. It was a pretty good article, and I made a couple changes to it, and I sent the article back to the person. And mostly what I was doing was changing the POV, and we're going to talk about POV in some later podcasts. But so I basically want to switch the POV to heighten certain elements of her story, and she wrote back and said, "Well, I can't do that." And I said, "No problem." And so I never published anything that she wrote, not because I'm being vindictive, but because I sort of know that when somebody doesn't want to work with you, there's only so much time I have during the course of the day. And if somebody doesn't want to be edited, that's totally fine. It's not personal. But what it also means is if that writer realizes that it's not a collaboration, that they're only writing, like their words cannot be touched, then I probably can't work for them, because I'm not, my goal is ultimately to bring the best I possibly can to my audience at In the Know Traveler, right? And so what makes it personal today, right now, is that I heard from my editor for my memoir. And so their notes are ready. So I'm either getting those final notes. That means they've probably, as they described it, they may have gone through the book 10 to 15 times. And these are all the notes that need to be, explored. And, there's two ways you can look at it. Because the way it's presented to me is that here are these notes. You go through and sort of pick and choose the notes that you would like. I would say that more than likely what it really means, and this is the way I would express it when I go to people, say, hey, here's the kinds of changes that we believe will improve the story. And so when I look at their notes that they're giving me, I have to then be open to the idea that the words that I chose and the sequence that I chose them and the paragraphs and the order of the sentences, is 70,000 words. After 70,000 words, I need another pair of eyeballs to get me where I want to be. I want the book to be as good as it gets. And the good news is I have a professional editor, somebody with great experience. As a matter of fact, this particular editor actually worked on a buddy of mine's book that I think it became a bestseller. Really great book. Read it not that long ago. This all said, what am I going to do ultimately with the notes that I receive? I'm going to go through them with a fine-tooth comb, because I think it is my responsibility to make sure that anything that they do, I want them to be the final word. I want them to kind of to med it out. But at the same time, it's my responsibility. My book is my responsibility. So what that really means is he's probably had, not only has he done it on his own. He probably has a team of other people who've gone through it page by page, looking for typos, looking for grammatical errors, placing question marks and commas and colons all in the right place to organize things so it'll be as good as possible to read for the somebody, not just me who's going to be reading it, but because somebody's going to be sitting at home reading it. And my job is that they never get caught up on a word or a sentence, that they stay in the book for every moment. I don't want them making a laundry list or a grocery list in their head of other things while they're reading my book. I want them to be thrilled. And this is also true as an editor in the New Traveler. When somebody finds an article, whether it be through Google or some other means, I want them to be freaking thrilled. I want them to be excited and enthusiastic about where their next trip will take them. And I want to provide them as many avenues as possible. So I'm probably going to get a matter of fact, I'm going to kind of read, I'm going to spend a couple days, I'm going to reread my own book. I am then going to, digest what his notes are, and I'm not entirely sure if it's just merely going to be line edits, whether it is going to be more like, hey, you need to rewrite this entire chapter. Now, they've already expressed to me that that's probably not the case, but it's possible. Matter of fact, when I was brand new, like the third article I ever wrote, it was a short article where I got to go to Las Vegas and interview the mayor at the time, who was a mob lawyer. And trust me, he fully acknowledges he was a mob lawyer, a guy by the name of Oscar Goodman. And I went and interviewed him, and I sat in front of his big horseshoe oak desk that was beautiful in his big, beautiful office in downtown Las Vegas. And, I sat and interviewed him and then crafted a story that was, I would like to think, beautiful. And then at some point when the article came out, it had my name on it. And probably during the entire article, which was probably 500, 700 words, probably there were no words that were actually originally mine. Like the article was completely rewritten. Now, it's not normal for something like that to happen. And, the funny thing is, it was my byline. I got paid for writing the article. And I, at the same time, was absolutely mortified. And I wanted to kind of write that editor and give him a piece of my mind. And I was kind of annoyed. So I'm giving you an extreme example. Ironically, probably about 6 months later, I probably got another 7 articles in a row from that same editor. This is a magazine, by the way. And I've been working with that editor for many, many years, but I had, after I had gotten over the initial, like, oh my God, what have I done wrong? Then I was annoyed that how dare you rewrite my story and say things. And I chose, after going through these series of emotions, to go, okay, wait, what's going on here? All right, he needed to make changes that he needed to make. They were extensive changes, like changes that I couldn't even have fathomed that needed to be made, but I chose to not say anything for the relationship. And this is important. This is kind of one of my tidbits, is that if you do develop a relationship with an editor, editors become editors-in-chief. These are people who send you on assignment. These are people who will edit your work. When they see your name and they recognize it, these are the people who are likely going to be able to take your article from the last page of a magazine and make it a feature article. So developing a relationship with editors is paramount. And ironically, the guy who edited my book, when I referred to my friend this guy edited his book, that guy was going to publish the book like 6 or 7 years prior to, and then he went in another direction, the editor did. And so he bounced around, but carried the manuscript with him. So when he landed at a place where he could finally sell and produce that manuscript to become a book, he did so. So in other words, this guy who's editing my book had the power to make or break somebody else's career. So I guess what I'm saying is that when you meet an editor, when you work with an editor, and you develop a relationship with an editor, understand that they have strength behind them. They have the ability to help change your life in really meaningful ways. And I'm like, knock wood, I am colossally grateful for that kind of an opportunity. So Uh, Oh, so getting back to my ridiculous story about Oscar Goodman, it was still about Oscar Goodman, but completely rewritten. And, I decided not to say anything because I felt that the editor was a good editor, that at some point they had a really good justification as to why they needed to do what they needed to do. And I was looking for a long-term relationship rather than, really standing my ground and getting to an argument over an article that had already been published. Like there was nothing else to do anyway. So I stayed with that relationship. That editor's great. And then it's like 6 months after that article came out, he literally confided in me and say, hey, there were 3 or 4 things that came up that needed to be included, and I didn't have any additional space. So I did the best that I could. I rewrote this story to reflect the things that we needed to do, which was something that I kind of assumed. And we went with it. I hope it didn't upset you. And of course I said, oh, no, it was nothing, even though I think I lost sleep over it. That said, this is part of the writer's game, and I'm giving you sort of like a behind the scenes of how it works, is that when somebody is like, because I have gotten letters, hey, do you mind, we need to rewrite this, or we need to do some work. When the answer is no, that is no problem, but we won't be publishing your story. And it's not a discussion, it's not a debate, and it's absolutely nothing personal. And those kinds of things, because, as an example, in the No Traveler, we get 100 queries a month. So first off, that's time consuming to sift through that, and then to find articles that we like and want to produce is a whole different level. And then to go through the editing process is all very time consuming. So when there's like a fly in the ointment, our job is to get it out and then move on to the next available opportunity for us, because we have our own schedules to keep. And this is important for you to know, whether you're writing magazine articles or long form like memoirs like me, that your first line of defense is, because like my interaction with the publisher is going to be minimal, because they're dealing with 25 books and 25 books from last 6 months and, prior to that. And then they're looking for great books all coming up. And that's all happening simultaneously. So it's a tremendous amount of work. But my direct contact, more often than not, is probably going to be this editor. And so whatever happens in the future is that I want to maintain a relationship with him. So will that be affected by what it is that I'm reading when he gives me my notes, which, by the way, may be like in my inbox right now as I'm speaking to you. It's actually very exciting. But what it means is, for line edits, meaning here's the right way to write a sentence, or there's a word missing, or there needs to be clarity here or there, then I'm probably going to give them the benefit of the doubt and understand that his understanding of grammar and the 12 other passes that have taken place before I saw it are probably like, yes, we've weighed the pros and cons on the sentence, and this is how we best feel it can be expressed. I'm probably just going to go okay with that. If there are certain things, hey, we want to remove this because it might upset some political status quo, my book's not a political, firing a shot across the bow, but it is something that is important for me to consider, that if I make sort of like make a statement that, could be challenged, that would be the thing that I would weigh the pros and cons. It's kind of the way I would look at each sentence and each line edit and each sort of like a bigger edit as sort of like, is this where I want to, like, is this the hill that I want to die on? And once in a while it will be, but I would probably say in my head that most of the changes that they want, I'm just going to make, or I'm going to agree to, depending on how it's presented. Like if it's a track changes or something like that, I might do that. But so ultimately, bottom line, when I'm working with an editor, I'm going to give that editor a certain amount of credit for their ability and their skill and their smarts. And then I am, of course, going to ultimately take responsibility in presenting the best book, because my name's going to be on the title, on the front cover of it, the best. I want you to have the best book possible. So I'm going to work closely with my editor. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And so, matter of fact, I think what we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to, not the next few weeks, probably this whole week, we're going to give you some direct tips of some of the best ways to make friends with an editor, how to work with them. And so when you want to get published, that you give yourself the best opportunities to make those things happen. Because if you're here checking us out, we're all into the writer's life and writing daily. If you have a question or a comment, make sure that you put it in this little box down here. Go to devingallaudet.com. It's going to be, the link is going to be listed below if you want to see what we're doing, because I'm going to be doing this every day, taking 15 minutes to talk about our favorite subjects of writing, how to write better novels, memoirs, short stories, travel writing. We're absolutely going to start covering that as well. And I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to travel the world as I have done. So there's a lot of fun things that we're going to get to talk to, and I'm probably going to continue to wear plaid. I don't even know what my thing is. So that all said, leave your comments down here, ask a question. I'm going to answer everybody, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on our upcoming podcast tomorrow, and thanks for being here.